What's up guys, Chris from Review Cave here, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about Hiro Mashimas' current manga, Eden's Zero. Now, for full disclosure, this is not Fairy Tail in space. I have seen a lot of these arguments placed by people that despise Fairy Tail, that it's just copy and pasting a lot of stuff from Mashima's old works, which, look, I am not going to lie that there are characters in the series that look similar to those in Fairy Tail, but this stuff happens with artists that make multiple different series and they have very similar art styles, or they have a very specific art style that is kind of hard to change. Either way, Mashima's character designs, set pieces, and overall artwork honestly has improved vastly, crossing from Fairy Tail over to Eden Zero, and it shows how talented the guy is at drawing. Let's get into why I think Eden Zero could actually become Hiro Mashima's best work from what I've read so far. Now, a real quick note, I have only read up to chapter 80, I'm like 20 to 30 chapters behind, but from what I have read, it is a very, very good series, and I honestly wholeheartedly enjoy it. I'm just going to be going over a few things from this manga that show why I like it, and why I think you yourselves will like it, and how Mashima has improved from his work on Fairy Tail and onto Eden Zero. So let's get started with the main overarching story of Eden Zero. So, Eden Zero takes place in the far future, where people travel from planet to planet in specific galactic systems that people can travel between, most likely at will, with different planets to explore, different cultures, etc. And that's something I really do like about a series when it comes to an adventure aspect, because this is, to its bare minimum, an adventure story. We follow the story of Shiki, the main protagonist, who was raised on a planet called Granbell by a bunch of robots who worked in an abandoned factory. His grandfather, that he began to call him, was Ziggy, who was also called the Demon King. It was revealed that Ziggy actually traveled beyond the Sakura Cosmos, which is the cosmos system that Shiki is currently in, that most of our main cast exists in, to go on a quest to find Mother. Now, Mother is an entity that exists outside the Sakura Cosmos and is honestly believed to be a myth. There is stories about Mother that if you see her, she will grant you a wish or bestow powers unto people. And a lot of people have this goal to search for Mother to get their wish granted. But a lot of people believe that Mother is just that, a myth that no one can actually obtain. And our main protagonist actually comes up with the idea to just go and find Mother, right after he meets with Rebecca, the main female lead, who, if you can guess by the character design, looks a hell of a lot like Lucy from Fairy Tail. But she is very different from Lucy, which is something that I have grown to really, really enjoy. She is not, I repeat not, always the damsel in distress and can actually fight on her own and takes down a lot of the enemies she ends up fighting. True, there are moments where she is either captured or somehow a damsel in distress, but those are more like minor hiccups where she ends up having to be the quote-unquote damsel in distress a lot of times and ends up getting out of these situations on her own, or finds an opportunity to get out of these situations. In all honesty, she is a very good fighter and has a very tearful and has a very sad backstory as well. She can fight on her own, she can take care of herself, but she's also good in combination with other characters when it comes to fighting. So as you can tell from a lot of like the cover arts and stuff like that, and how he continues to change Rebecca's outfit, that Mashima actually enjoys drawing her a lot. We get a lot of main characters. It is revealed that Shiki's grandfather, Ziggy, created this big ship called Eden's Zero that has these 4 generals, these 4 robots that Ziggy created in order to go on his journey, and they found Shiki on their way during that journey, causing Ziggy to abandon his journey a bit prematurely to raise Shiki, and thus left the 4 generals to do what they want. And the very start of the manga, for the first like 30 to 50 chapters, is essentially Shiki and the main cast trying to gather these 4 generals so they can have the power needed to unlock Eden Zero's the full power of Eden Zero, to go beyond the Sakura Cosmos, as they encounter different threats and obstacles in their journey. As we also begin to see how these different characters and these different systems that they end up visiting and planets end up working, whether it be their cultures, their laws, or just how things generally work in wherever they end up. We get to see vastly different areas in each arc and how the plot ends up progressing. We get interesting characters and interesting antagonists, which I have come to really enjoy. There are some characters that you, honest to God, cannot really stand. Honestly, from what I can tell, is done on purpose, so you can really like seeing those characters get what they deserve. Now, things I really want to highlight on what he has managed to improve on is his storytelling, his character writing, his action scenes, the whole concept of power of friendship, and the last guy that's not really that major, the fan service aspects that you've seen a lot in Fairy Tail. His writing in regards to the story is honestly vastly improved over Fairy Tail because it actually shows that he has a very clear idea of where he wants the story to go by giving us a concrete end goal at the very start of the series, which is essentially storytelling 101 if you want the series to actually end. Give your characters a proper goal to reach, put challenges and obstacles in their way, introduce new interesting characters and antagonists, and add in whatever the hell you want later down the road to actually expand this whole universe he is literally creating right now to be a more satisfying, a more immersive experience. Because, well, yes, Fairy Tail was honestly a lot of fun and the characters went on a bunch of adventures. There was no end goal, which kind of caused the show to end up losing focus. Yes, you can have a series with no initial end goal at the beginning, and it can still end off pretty damn well, but by having a clear end goal, you can do pretty much whatever the hell you like as long as it makes sense within the terms of the universe that you have created, which is either power scaling, fights, characters, etc. Or hell, even these bizarre creatures that he has created that are somehow a bit nonsensical or don't make too much sense, but in the context of the story he is writing, it makes a lot of sense. Overall, his story writing has honestly gotten a lot better, especially in terms of focus and his progression. A lot of the arcs aren't like vastly big, like at most, they would end up being maybe 3 to 4 volumes long, but at this point it's mostly like 2 to 3 volumes per arc as like the bare average. At least, again, I am not fully caught up to it, but this is like the biggest pattern that I've seen in terms of its arc progression. But since the arcs aren't too big, and since the cast isn't enormous in every regard, it's not the Fairy Tail level huge, we actually get a tightly knit story with actual progression and have it give more focus to what Mashima wants to tell. And it's something I've come to really appreciate while reading it, because while some arcs are better than others in this, they're all very well enjoyable, and you really want to see what happens next. And that is especially true if your character writing has gotten a hell of a lot better. And that's what Mashima did. Now Mashima, he was honestly pretty good when it came to writing characters, nothing super spectacular, but he always had that handful of really well-written characters in a series, especially in Fairy Tail. Like you had Urza, you had, well, Grey for the most part, you had characters like Mira, and some of the antagonists to an extent. Well, not so much the antagonists, but you know what I mean. He's done a pretty good job with his character writing. But in Zero, it feels like he's put a lot more effort into his main cast, especially since he hasn't had the main character in his main group be like 20 whole people, which causes him to actually really think about how he wants these characters to interact with each other, how, like, what kind of habits they have, their personalities get fleshed out a hell of a lot more. They each get their own moments to shine, and their character growth and progression is honestly very believable. Even when we get backstories to these characters, primarily like Rebecca, Shiki, the 4 generals like Valkyrie, Hermit, Witch, and Sister, all have some really good backstories and motivations, and these moments where Mashima, now look, in Fairy Tail, Mashima gave you some pretty heartfelt moments in Fairy Tail, like a lot, and in Zero that hasn't gone away. It's gotten a lot better, primarily because he focuses a lot more on the characters of this series. It honestly feels like he's learning from his mistakes from Fairy Tail in terms of his story writing and his character writing. I'm not gonna lie, like, Rebecca's backstory nearly brought me to tears, which is honestly something I cannot say a lot of series end up doing for me. At most, it will make me sad or feel sorry for the character, but not like nearly bring me to tears. There are moments in the series that are heartfelt, that it's like, this is classic Mashima. You know his writing style, but it's gotten a hell of a lot better, and I really do enjoy it. Moving on from characters, because I don't really want to get too into the character development stage and writing, because I feel like I'm going to like spoil so damn much when it comes to the characters, because it's something you got to read for yourself. The fight scenes that Mashima draws have honestly gotten better than in Fairy Tail. And Fairy Tail had some really great fight scenes. I really enjoyed the fight scenes in Fairy Tail, even when a lot of them became very nonsensical or made absolutely no sense whatsoever and just felt like he's doing stuff for the sheer hell of it. And this also ties into the whole power of friendship thing from Fairy Tail. The fight scenes that Mashima draws honestly have a better sense of scale and detail as the story progresses. And a lot of times there's more of an emotional narrative because a lot of times, especially in the later chapters, a lot of the villains that the main characters fight have some sort of more emotional or personal connection that makes the fights even more intense. Maybe not completely, like they know each other for a long time, they became enemies, or it can just be something like they're a very bad person and ended up hurting someone they care about or someone that they eventually became friends with. It's a whole thing, but the fights have a lot more depth to them, which really does make you enjoy the fight scenes even more, especially when they get way more visually appealing than you think they would. Mashima's artwork improves a lot through the series, and you see with every single fight, with every single, especially his paneling also, his paneling has gotten a hell of a lot better to help sell the impact of attacks or the grand scale and tension and tone of what he's trying to set for these fight scenes. Especially when it comes to characters' actual growth and how they change. It's something that I've come to really appreciate, and it just shows that the guy has been learning from his experience with Fairy Tail, and that it's very possible that he was honestly planning this out as he was finishing up Fairy Tail. Overall, the fight scenes have honestly felt like a vast improvement over Fairy Tail, primarily from the beginnings of these series. Fairy Tail has a lot of grandiose fights and stuff that I honestly will put as some of my best fights in anime or manga, but the point is, Mashima has in fact improved in his fight scene choreography, his artwork, and how he's paneled and structured these fights. It's gotten better. I can't wait to see how he deals with it later down the road. And this also ties into the whole power of friendship thing, which is something that was addressed, believably or not, in this actual story. One of the biggest problems you had in Fairy Tail was, well, the common argument that people had in Fairy Tail was essentially, oh, power of friendship, this guy becomes OP for no damn reason to beat the bad guy because he thinks of his friends and stuff like that. That is actually something that I do kind of agree with, and it has been done a hell of a lot. I don't mind the whole power of friendship thing, but if it's done to excess, it's just cringeworthy. That's honestly one of the things that kind of hindered my enjoyment of Fairy Tail, but again, I still enjoy Fairy Tail. But in Eden Zero, you do have these moments where you're like, oh, Shiki's using the power of friendship, but it ends up just being explained that Shiki is literally just that much stronger than an opponent, or is just exploiting a weakness, or it's given a logical explanation where it's not just he becomes OP or stronger just out of nowhere. And this also ties into how Shiki, as a character, just continues to want to make friends. Like, everywhere he goes, he's like, hi, will you be my friend? And Rebecca just smacks the shit out of him just to say, cut it out. It's a running gag in the manga, but it does get toned down a lot later down the road. It could be very cringeworthy to some people, but honestly, I just like how Mashima has been self-aware on his problems with Fairy Tail, like with the overuse of the power of friendship tropes and stuff like that, which I really do appreciate, that he is actually calling himself out on his own problems from the previous series and actually improving on them, which is something that I do like. Power of friendship still exists in this, but it's not like used to excess like in Fairy Tail, or a lot of times you think it's power of friendship, but it's just literally the guy is either that much stronger or he ends up exploiting someone's weakness. And it's, honestly, I really enjoyed it. It's just nice to see a writer take from his own mistakes, take criticism, and actually put that into his writing and fix it. And hell, even address it as like a narrative, as like a meta joke. But yeah, power of friendship so far has honestly been fixed in Eden Zero, and it's something I cannot express my enjoyment of how he's handled all these topics. Lastly, and this honestly isn't really much of a gripe, or this doesn't really take away from my overall enjoyment of the series, it did kind of change how he does fan service in the series. Now in Fairy Tail, there is a lot of fan service moments and some questionable times when he decides to do fan service or money shots. In Eden Zero, that's still around, but not to the same extent, and it just feels more, how should I put this? I guess earned? Either earned or it just doesn't feel that cringeworthy as it is in Fairy Tail. Not much to say there. There are some moments, especially in the beginning arcs, that feel like very questionable decisions in terms of putting in fan service scenes, which is I view as like Mashima falling into some old habits. But he ends up fixing it down the road. There are some moments that I'm not gonna lie, some fan service moments that don't deserve to be in certain like arcs or in other moments in the series. But overall, he's improved upon it, and even when we do get fan service moments, it's just more, I'd say, more tasteful. But yeah, with everything I've just said, Eden Zero is honestly a really good series. It is a great spiritual successor to Fairy Tail. Its story is a lot more focused and tightly knit, with an actual end goal, thus giving Mashima a bit more freedom and more of a guideline, in the most part, on how he's going to write his story. The characters have a lot more of a focus in the series, whether it comes to how they deal with other threats or how they grow as people, and the action scenes and a lot of the problems that Fairy Tail had have been especially addressed in this series, which has made it a lot more enjoyable for me, and why there are more people that are fans of Eden Zero now. So if you haven't already, give Eden Zero a shot. It is honestly a really good manga. I highly recommend it. If I get caught up, I might decide to do a review of each chapter when it comes out. But again, that all depends on whether or not I am safe from copyright strikes. But hell, whatever happens, happens. If you like videos where I discuss manga as a whole, whether they're underrated, need more attention, or people are just ignoring them based off of like rumors or stuff like that, let me know in the comments down below, and I may actually make a video on whatever title you want in the future. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell for when I upload future videos. It really helps. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at the official Review Cave for, well, updates on future videos and whatever the hell else is going on in my life. And with all that said and done, I hope you guys have an awesome day.